Tuesday, October 22nd, 2024, and today The View decided to tackle the Arnold Palmer Schlong incident and the fries, which we talked about yesterday. Um, but I will say the one thing about the McDonald's stunt is that he didn't wear any hair covering, which you have to do in food service, and um, McDonald's doesn't hire felons, so he's not. Donnie's not going to get the fry job. Oh, anyway, but what I do want to talk about is the what they briefly mentioned today on the hot topics about Trump and his um continued repeating of this discussion of the enemy within, meaning the people that don't support him. Um, and in those times when he's talking about the enemy within, he's always referencing um, the Pelosi's and Adam Schiff and all of these, sycophantic surrogates to go on these political shows. The Speaker of the House, uh, Glenn Youngkin, you know, Chris Sununu, which is surprising. And they go out and they're like, well, he doesn't mean elected officials. But it's like, no, no, no. Yes, he does mean elected officials. He's saying their names. And what does that mean exactly? It's okay if he's not talking about elected officials. It's okay that he's talking about people who don't support him or the enemy within, and that it's okay to send the military after them. Basically, like, let's break open the ballot boxes, find out who didn't vote for me, and arrest them. Like that's the kind of thing that he's saying. And it's just bizarre to me that they continue to smile through these explanations of what he means. Which is also hilarious because so many people around the country are like, I like Trump because he says what he means. Well, okay, but every time he says something, everybody has to some sort of backtrack it and then reinterpret it as, oh, he was kidding, or that's sarcasm, or he doesn't mean what you think it means, or he doesn't mean the actual words that he said. It's bizarre. And to me, that's the most damaging part of all of this is all these weird, um, excuse me, surrogates that in the Republican Party that are willing to just throw logic and truth out the window, and all for some sort of fealty to some guy who's not going to be their leader and save them. Um, they're going to be ones stuck holding the bag uh, when Trump goes away because he's going away eventually, sooner than later. Whether it's to you know to the nice house where the ladies will take care of you, or the big house where the guys are going to take care of you. Um, but so I just don't understand why people are throwing away their reputation for this guy. But this whole thing, this whole notion, this enemy within thing, to me is sort of the scariest part of the uh, of the election. I do feel that um, that this is not going to be that close when it comes down to it. When we count the votes and we get through the electoral college, I just don't think it's going to be that close. It's going to be contentious for sure. Um, I'm concerned about sort of illegalities at lower levels, but I also feel like I trust the election processes enough that um, that can't uh, completely overchange the the will of the voters, and I do think that the votes are going to turn out massively in her favor. It's just the geography of whether or not we get that whole thing right, which I think we will. And I would like to. I would. It would be nice to see an electoral college trouncing, but he's going to sow mistrust. He's already doing it all over the place. There's going to be court battles. They've already lost two court battles in North Carolina and Michigan, I think, where the Republican Party was preemptively trying to disallow overseas ballots, mail-in ballots, and they were thrown out because the court said the ballots have already gone out. You can't make the case now. It's too late. Which, you know, thank God. There's so much that we rely on the courts for, and there's so much of the court that's corrupted by his appointees. It's you know, we're right on that edge. You know, if he gets more time to lead, we're fucked for generations. But we have a time to balance that out if we act appropriately now. Um, but so he's showing all this mistrust, and there's going to be all this legal action. But I feel like it's this term, that whole enemy within, and to turn our militia against them, and the way that he's talking about forcefully going after that enemy within, when he very clearly means the people that aren't supporting him, um, and what that means in terms of violence, not only against politicians, but against everyday people being in danger from their neighbors because of the way that they voted. And excuse me, and the neighbors are just violent and vengeful. That scares me more than anything. And that is because it's not a concentrated thing at the capital that's contained. That's like hotspots that pop up everywhere around the country with lunatics. That's to me terrifying. Um, and I don't know what to do about that. You know, in a lot of these places where this is going to be the case, there's a lot of, on my part, mistrust of law enforcement, um, because not to bash cops in general, but there is a lot of corruption across local police around the country. We see it all over the place. It doesn't mean every cop is bad. That's not the point. And I'm not saying defund the police. It's not an indictment of, um, of the police in general. It's just there is evidence, documented evidence around the country that there are um, some people in law enforcement that are not in it for actual justice. Um, so that concerns me. But um, I thought we were going to try to be positive about this election and joyful. The other thing, we'll just because we're, since we were talking about poor Arnold Palmer's. I mean, I've gone back and looked at pictures. His pants are really baggy. It's hard to tell. But Trump also over the weekend in an interview somewhere was talking about Harvey Weinstein, who was guilty as fuck and deserved to be in jail. Um, and he says, "Yeah, Harvey Weinstein got," and he pauses for a second. And he goes, "He got schlonged." Like the man has a very serious penis obsession, and the way that he said in talking about Arnold Palmer, "I love women," it's like, uh, that's usually, bordering into the territory of, if you have to really defend it that hard, something's in there that might not make that statement so true. Um, and I'm sure Diddy's said the same thing.